What's up, y'all? It's Drewski, and I've teamed up with Mountain Dew to produce a hilarious new basketball podcast called The Dew Zone with Drewski. Learn the backstories of your favorite ballers and celebrities like Jamal Murray.
Did you have like a favorite team? Was it the Raptors at the time or no? Was the Raptors even started around that time?
Come on, bro.
I ain't that old, fam. You talking like I'm 50.
Taylor Rooks, Asia Wilson, and many more. You won't want to miss this. Listen to The Dew Zone with Drewski on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you listen to podcasts.
Hey, this is Megan Rapinoe. And I'm Sue Bird. We've decided to turn our crazy IG live show into a podcast for your listening pleasure. Enjoy the show. A Touch More.
New episodes of A Touch More drop Tuesday only on the Blue Wire Podcast Network. Be sure to subscribe to the show on Spotify, Apple, or anywhere else you listen to podcasts.
The Timeline is a Blue Wire podcast.
Here's Holiday, been on the all-defensive roster the last couple of seasons. Suns turn him over again, up ahead to Oubre, and Kelly rising up with a soul-stealing left-hand slam on Ingram.
I don't know what Ingram was doing. That's almost like trying to run and jump into a fire. I mean, Kelly Oubre will dunk it on you.
Welcome to the Timeline of Phoenix Suns podcast, back again with another podcast. I think 3 weeks in a row now. We're on some sort of streak here. My name is Mike. I'm here as always with Sam. Sam, how are you doing?
I'm good, Mike. We have basketball to talk about, kind of, sort of.
Maybe. It seems like it.
We have real news. Let me rephrase that. Not starting off so hot today. 9 weeks after the season was postponed, and we've recorded maybe 6 or 7 episodes since then. And this is the first one where I think we have the opportunity to talk about actual news to you guys, actual things that are going on in the National Basketball Association. Nothing is confirmed yet, but a couple of bombs were dropped today, and we're maybe headed towards some legit stuff.
Yeah, I think just to sort of recap, I'm just going to go off the top of my head, everything that sort of happened in the last week or so. The first big news that came out was that there was a big conference call with like a lot of the major NBA stars, everyone except James Harden, of course. Yep. Yeah, they left him out. So like LeBron, Giannis, Kawhi, I forget who else was on it, but you know, Chris Paul, of course, always finds his way into everything. And they came to the conclusion that they would like the season to continue. There's been some like rumors from other players who think that about 80% of the NBA players want the season to continue or come to some sort of ending, logical ending, and then a possible playoff / finals at some point in the future. And then it was noted that the NBA was trying to work towards that with some sort of idea of what they call a bubble system, where every one of the players and hopefully their families all live in one area and all the games take place in one area. So if there are no fans, which is part of the plan here, there's no reason for it to be home or away games. They're going to set up a singular court with proper cameras and broadcast equipment, and then the games will take place within that one specific place. And then there was another report subsequently by somebody, I believe at Sports Illustrated, which actually kind of surprised me, that said that the NBA is now working towards a 70-game season. If you people who have actually continued to listen to this podcast after the end of the NBA season, if you'll remember, a few weeks ago I brought up the point that there was a specific mark for regional sports networks where they had to pay out the entirety of the sports contracts to the NBA, and that was 70 games. If each team hits 70 games, the NBA gets 100% of regional sports network money. Regional sports network money for Arizona, that would be Fox Sports Arizona. So each region has their own sports networks. Those are called RSNs. They have to pay out if the season gets to over 70 games. So this is entirely money motivated, and I think part of the reason I think the players are probably in on the idea is I'm assuming, and I don't know, Sam, you can correct me if I'm wrong in this assumption, but I'm assuming that it was presented to some of the players as, hey, some of you are free agents. Mm-hmm. If we don't hit this 70-game mark, a max contract will be blank, or a minimum will be blank, or whatever the average contract would be. And it's a lot less than it has been. Obviously, there was a huge inflation of contracts in the last few years, and now the players all seem to be on the page of allowing the season to continue. That was the biggest hurdle in my mind for the NBA season resuming. Surprisingly, in my opinion, the players seem to be on board, and that all signs are now pointing towards a season resuming at some point in the future, likely in July, according to the reports, right?
Yeah, that's a great recap. Money talks, I think, is basically the summary there, and that's why the players are on board. Regarding the salary cap, you're precisely right. I don't think the salary cap has decreased in the NBA from year to year in roughly 20 years. And even the last time that it did, it dropped by maybe $1 million in a season. What the NBA was headed towards, if it didn't reach the 70-game benchmark in the regular season, as you noted, and didn't get the full payout from the RSNs, the regional sports networks like Fox Sports Arizona and all the other ones for each respective team, they were headed towards a catastrophic drop in the salary cap, and we didn't know exactly what that was. We didn't know to this point if there was going to require some sort of renegotiation of the CBA,
which is rumored,
which is still rumored to this point. But sort of forcing, because let's face it, Mike, the playoffs are already set. Theoretically, in a perfect world where money doesn't matter, even if you want to finish the playoffs, you only need to send 16 teams to Disney World or wherever they're going to end up. Probably Disney World is looking like. So there's no reason for the other 14 teams, including the Suns, to go if they were only going to play 5 games. The Suns, their season is over. They're not going to make the playoffs based on a 5-game sample. But if it's being sold to the players as a way to avoid that kind of catastrophic drop in the salary cap, preserve some of their salaries for the future and their future earning potential, as many of them hit the free agent market for the next couple of years, that's kind of how you can sell it to them. Now, I will say, because of capitalism, it does look like all this stuff is going to happen. I think we should have the opportunity, Mike, to say, because I don't think we've said it at all in the past 2.5 months. I think we've been mostly avoiding the topic. Do you actually think the NBA season should return in the first place? I think I know how you feel about it. I don't think you've ever said it out loud, so I kind of want to get it out there on the record.
I really don't. I just can't imagine a scenario where this works out entirely well in all cases. And I don't want to get too grim, talking about basketball here. I'll be 100% honest. I'm conflicted. Overall, I'm conflicted because, one, I feel like a return of sports feels like a bit of a return to normalcy. Now, what we're going to see, assuming it does return, will not feel normal. It will feel completely different and weird because they're all going to be in one place. There's going to be no fans, which potentially means no fan noise. And it's just going to be odd and awkward. And what are they going to be playing for? I think is a conversation that we can really talk about here. Of course, there are teams that we're going to try to play for a title here. No matter what, this title will have an asterisk on it. Does that mean they shouldn't try hard to win it? No, feel free to try as hard as you want. Will it feel like a real, normal, regular title? No, it will not. It just won't. One of the main reasons why the fans won't even be there when it ends, when they're hoisting a trophy at the end. You're not even going to be surrounded by people that were cheering for the team the entire time. And the idea that who knows what'll happen, right? What happens if one of the star players gets sick and isn't able to play? It's just, all of it feels a little bit awkward. So I'm mostly conflicted, but I do sort of lean towards playing it safe. There's just no reason to risk these players' health and safety. Not to mention that there's a lot of older coaches. There's a lot of older broadcasters.
Absolutely.
There's people that are in. And here's the thing. It's not just old people that are at risk here. There's a lot of people at risk, in a lot of different areas, age ranges, everything. And it's just for what other than money, I guess, is kind of how I break this down in my mind. And you know what? That money's not coming to me. So and I love sports. Obviously, I love sports. We do this podcast essentially for free. At most months, it costs us money to do this podcast. So of course I love it, but I'm conflicted, and I don't really feel like it's necessary for it to come back. And that's not saying that I won't watch it when it does. Of course I will, and I will probably be excited to see it in a lot of aspects. And later on in this podcast, we're going to talk about, assuming the NBA season does resume, we're going to talk about things that we would like to see out of that season. So we're going to cover it just as normal, but I feel conflicted. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, I mean, I can't pretend that I'd be heavily invested in 5 regular season Suns games that mean literally nothing. It feels like a huge gamble. on the part of the NBA in terms of the potential. And just to put it out there, Adam Silver told those on the NBA's Board of Governors, Woj tweeted this out the other day, that he said if a positive test would shut them down, then they probably shouldn't go down this path. Well, a couple days later, now they are going down this path. Evidently, they have decided that they will put a contingency plan in place should players get sick, as they need to. It wasn't a reasonable option ever to decide that if you had another Gobert situation and one player got sick, you would shut the whole thing down again. So evidently, that is something that the NBA's Board of Governors and Adam Silver and all of the owners are willing to live with. I don't think they should. As you mentioned, many of the coaches are old. I imagine someone like Greg Popovich on the sidelines, 71 years old. Mike D'Antoni, coach of the Houston Rockets, they could go deep into the playoffs. He's 69 years old. Many other coaches that are slipping my mind at this point could potentially be more vulnerable to this disease, not to mention their families. So I think the potential for this to kind of spiral out of control and pave a clear arrow pointing back to Adam Silver and the collective owners of the league as the bad guys. It's far too great that if I were them, I wouldn't really be willing to take the risk. But again, as you say, I'm not and neither of us are playing with hundreds of millions of dollars in our back pockets.
Yeah, and I'll be 100% honest too. The players that sort of made this decision were all players that are going to be in the playoffs. We'll just say that, right? They're all players that have something to play for, and I think for us as Suns fans, what's the point? What is the point of continuing the season? Like you said, 5 more games for the Suns are at 75 games played. It would be essentially 5 basically meaningless games. The players, I brought up the list here. Chris Paul, LeBron James, Anthony Davis, Kevin Durant, which, why was he even there? Giannis, Kawhi Leonard, Steph Curry, Damian Lillard, and Russell Westbrook. So I guess outside of Damian Lillard, every single one of these players is in the playoffs. Kevin Durant excluded as well, although his team, I'm not sure if they're in the playoff race at this point, but they probably are.
They are, yeah.
They all, of course, they made that decision because there's a chance that they win a championship, especially this year. Like, it's up for grabs by anybody at this point because of how weird this situation is. It could be anyone. And so, of course, they're the ones that made that decision. I think from our perspective here, and from the perspective, I think, importantly, of James Jones, Robert Sarver, Monty Williams, remember those guys? We haven't said those names in a while. Why should it be important for them to try, and should they risk injury or the chance of a player getting sick just to play these 5 games? Like, why not, as sad as it is to say, why not sign 5 or 6, 7, 8 G League guys and let them play? Or do you think it's more important to try and get to some sort of normalcy, get these guys a little more time playing together? I wonder, sure. I would love to get in their minds there because it's hard to understand why they would want to try too hard here.
I think there are a bunch of points you could make to either, all 3 of those characters, really. So starting with Monty Williams, I think Monty probably couldn't care less. I don't really see a reason. I mean, maybe he could make the case to the media that he's trying to enter next season with some sort of momentum. But I think that's kind of just something you say. I don't know if he necessarily means it. If he knows they're not going to make the playoffs, I don't really see why he would care. James Jones might be a little more interesting because James Jones has to make some decisions coming up, and he's going to be dealing with some guys who are going to enter free agency. It's always useful to see more of a sample size on those guys. I think it was... and not even just this summer, but actually the summer beyond too, because it was David Nash who made a good point the other day that one of the sort of disadvantages of having a shortened season right now is that a lot of GMs have to make interesting decisions on guys who were taken either from the 2017 draft class or from the 2018 draft class on smaller sample sizes of games in order to make those decisions. Allow me to give you an example that's not Suns related. Josh Jackson. For the Memphis Grizzlies, you may remember him, played 18 games this season. He only played 18 games, but he actually looked pretty solid by all measures. He had, if I recall, a positive value over replacement player. He was pretty good in some advanced statistics. He doesn't look like a future superstar, but he certainly looks like a better product than the player he was in Phoenix. The question that GMs obviously have is, after 18 games, do you trust that sample size? Are you willing to touch that sort of player with a 10-foot pole in free agency. So for some GMs, I could see, even if this final stretch of games has an asterisk on it for not necessarily holding the same value, you want to get as much of a sample size as possible on any impending free agents to help you make those decisions in the summer. And for Robert Sarver probably doesn't care if Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton play or not. I'm sure he cares that the Suns play because he wants as much money as possible. And I don't only say that because of his reputation, but I say that because factually Robert Sarver is one of the poorest owners in the NBA. That's not to say he's poor, but that is to say he's not a billionaire, and many of these guys up against him, sitting next to him at these meetings, are billionaires. So, for Suns fans, from our perspective, Robert Sarver already has the reputation that he is. If the salary cap takes a catastrophic hit going into next season, and Sarver already being a guy that wasn't really willing to go into the luxury tax, even if the Suns were fielding a good team, you have to think that that's going to impact how he views building this roster in the future, if that were to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And we should mention too, the arena is fully under construction right now. I'm sure a lot of you have been following it through the Suns posts and Lindsey Smith's posts about that. And that means that no games are going to take place in that arena right now. They can't. And mind you, that's also their practice facility until the new practice facility is open, hopefully before the end of the year here. That means they have nowhere to play and nowhere to practice. They are opening the Madhouse on McDowell. The WNBA season's still on hold. That means nobody's essentially using the Madhouse on McDowell. Javon Carter recently posted something on Instagram of him actually working out there, so it appears to be open to the players right now. That means they have the ability of practicing. If there are any sort of practices, that's where it's going to happen, at the Madhouse, which is fine and it's all safe. But as we talked about, the games are going to be in a bubble anyway. It's not like we can go to them. So that's going to be in Orlando, according to all the reports. I do want to mention, though, obviously, this is all still very up in the air. We are not reporters. We're not giving you any news here. We're just navigating it the same way that you people listening to us are. We're figuring it out as we go as well. And I think there will be an opportunity for players to speak out. Now, I imagine there are players that are speaking privately right now. It's only a matter of time before players start speaking a little more publicly, and that can go a couple different directions with this. There are some pretty influential voices. People close to players have been lost, as we know, and there could be some interesting things said by players, and that could change the entire trajectory of all of this. It's clearly all very money motivated, and that's a pretty strong factor for a business, and ultimately that's what they are. We'll see where it goes.
We'll see where it goes. You brought up the point, what's going to happen if a player gets sick again? Obviously, they're not going to be allowed to play. But what do you think of this idea? What if they were allowed to play?
That sounds horrible.
Think about this. Well, we've already admitted that it's money motivated, right? Okay, so all these players are in a bubble. This is mostly a joke idea, but take me seriously for a second. Let's say you start with 30 teams. You throw out the entire playoff system as it currently is designed. If it's going to be an asterisk no matter who wins the championship, then let's make it fun. And to that end, I propose this. 3 leagues. You've got a winner's bracket. You start with all 30 teams, but then you've got a winner's bracket, you've got a loser's bracket, and you've got a COVID bracket. And how it works is you start with all 30 teams. The winners advance until you get a champion. That's the winner's bracket, pretty obvious. Okay. The losers play for the consolation prize. That's going to determine your lottery order for the year. So let's say, for instance, it's going to be winner takes all in one game, single elimination, like it's March Madness, to make it interesting. So let's say the Warriors play the Bucks in the first round, and the Warriors knock out the Bucks. Well, now the Bucks are probably the best team in the consolation, the losers bracket. And what the Bucks get to do is they get to potentially win that bracket and get the first overall pick. So it makes it interesting from both sides. As all of this happens, players are likely going to start getting infected. But given the athletic ability that most of them have, I'm going to bank on most of them being healthy enough to play, potentially even asymptomatic. I assume if this happens, all of the players will have to be tested every day. And so that's where the COVID bracket comes into play. All of these sick, infected players who are healthy enough to play will fill this third bracket, ideally coached by the coaches who have gotten COVID, tended to by trainers who have gotten COVID, drafted onto new teams by all of the GMs who have also contracted COVID at this point. And, I don't know. I just think that would be interesting, explore some chemistry. I think Like, you could decide what the winners in that third bracket get. I think the winners in the COVID bracket drafted onto these new teams might get salary incentives. You could basically give them reparations for involving
antibodies.
They get antibodies and reparations for being involved in what this clusterfuck is in the first place. But my overall point being, if we're gonna do this, why not make it fun? Like if we're gonna be different, let's just make it totally different, totally out there.
That's absurd, and so is the idea of the bubble. So I guess why not? It's not that much more absurd than what they want to do, and we get a chance to see Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert on different teams because they could get drafted to different teams. I guess they would be the first ones in there. Kevin Durant as well. I think those are the only. Are those the only three players that we know about? There's probably others. That
Who contracted it?
Yeah,
Christian Wood.
Christian Wood. That's right. I forgot about that. So it's all, it's interesting. I do want to just come back to a point here. Do you think the Suns should just kind of tank out these last few games and try and, I guess there's a chance they raise their draft stock a little bit, but, probably not by much. Do you think there's any point of them like going full out? I guess if there's a single game elimination tournament, maybe that's the only thing that could motivate the players enough to try hard.
Yeah, that kind of gets into my answers for what we want to see if the season comes back. So do we want to just are we pushing through to the next segment?
Let's take a break.
All right, let's take a break first.
And then we'll come back and we're going to talk about things that we want to see, assuming it does come back, because like I said, as down on it as we can be right now, as soon as I see basketball on my TV, there will be some sort of excitement, regardless of if it's Devin Booker throwing a lob to Ty Jerome, or to DeAndre, or if it's Ty Jerome throwing a lob to someone else, a G Leaguer, I'll probably be excited. All right, we'll be right back. We'll talk about that in a second. There is no shortage of action going on at our exclusive partner, Bet Online. NASCAR is back, and Bet Online has hundreds of other games, events, and sports to get in on. You can still bet on simulated NFL, NBA, and UFC events 24/7. Or you can participate in a $10,000 Madden Bracket Challenge, a March Madness-style NFL simulation tournament you can enter for free. And coming up next Sunday, BetOnline has ex-Chicago Bulls Ron Harper, Horace Grant, Bill Cartwright, and Craig Hodges joining them to discuss the Michael Jordan documentary on what they're calling The Final Dance. Visit betonline.ag and use promo code BLUEWIRE to receive your new welcome bonus and check out all the action. BetOnline, your online wagering solution. Guys looking to last longer and go a few extra rounds? Get BlueChew.com. BlueChew.com has the first ever chewable that brings your performance in the bedroom to another level. They've got the same active ingredients that are in Viagra and Cialis, so you know they work. And since they're chewable, they work faster. You can take them anytime, day or night, even on a full stomach. Plus, you don't need to go to the doctor's office or spend time waiting in the pharmacy line. Blue Chew's online physician is free of cost, and once approved, your order ships straight to your door in discreet packaging. Here's a great deal for you guys. Visit BlueChew.com and get your first order free when you use promo code BLUEWIRE. Just pay $5 shipping. Again, that's BLUE Chew.com, promo code BLUEWIRE. Okay, assuming the NBA does come back, what do we want to see? We each wrote down a few different things that we want to talk about. Do you want to go first, or would you like me to go first?
You were setting me up anyway, so I'll go first right here.
Okay.
Mine was going to be pretty simple. So, look, originally my original answer here was I wanted to see more of the Valley Boys lineup. I think we talked ourselves out of that in the past.
That's a new name. That's a new name, by the way.
Sorry, is that a new name? Let me explain what that is. That's the starting lineup at the end of the season. So it's Devin Booker. Well, before Kelly Oubre got hurt. So it's Devin Booker, Ricky Rubio, Kelly Oubre, Mikal Bridges, and DeAndre Ayton. It's that lineup. That is the Valley Boys lineup, as we're calling it. That lineup has a disgusting net rating, but you always love to get the sample size up there. Just get them more minutes played together so that you can go in with some momentum next season and hopefully build on what they started to do this year. But I think we basically talked ourselves out of that in the first.
And there's really no reason for
first 20
Kelly
minutes.
Oubre seems to be healthy, but there's no reason for him to play even if he feels okay anyway. So
yeah, so now I'm basically thinking, fuck it, just like play Jalen LeCue. Like that I've changed my answer to that. To which I realized, have you ever looked at Jalen LeCue's G League numbers for the Northern Arizona Suns this year?
Yes, and I'll be honest, I wish that I hadn't.
They're very much not good.
They're bad. They're very bad.
He averaged 13 points, 3 assists per game, but also 3 turnovers. He shot 41% from the field and only 21% from deep. But again, this is a kid who was drafted straight out of high school. His potential supposedly is sky high. His athleticism, his vertical leap is sky high. So that's definitely what you're going to see if you bring him back. And yeah, I mean, look, if the Suns are tanking, who cares? Because probably every other team will be. With only 5 games left, you're not going to get more than maybe a couple spots up or down on the lottery tankathon ladder anyway. So you might as well play Jalen LeCue, and you might as well play Ty Jerome, and I don't know, who else is there? Do we still have Tariq Owens and Jared Harper at the G League, or
yeah,
are they gone? If you still have those guys, then bring them back up. All those guys. Might as well.
Yeah, I like it because, well, why not? I guess is really the thing to point out there. And just to see, I think you should not only play Jalen LeCue, you should give him just a full license to do kind of whatever he wants. Now, that's not good player development, I'll be honest.
That's 2015.
Don't you just want to see him try to dunk on everyone?
That's 2015 to 2018 era Suns development.
It's the Josh Jackson.
That's the Josh Jackson school of development. Josh Jackson shooting fadeaway middies over Draymond Green. That's the sort of thing that is. That's what I want to see out of Jay. I mean, imagine if he gets 30 to 40 points in one of these 5 games and the Suns get blown out by 40. That sounds like a predictable scenario, but it would be awesome.
And honestly, we're used to that kind of thing. So
honestly, we are. And yeah, what's the point in risking injury to Booker or Ayton or Oubre? I will say it is a little unfortunate if the NBA season finally returns. Kelly Oubre and Frank Kaminsky have spent so much time rehabbing, and then they don't get to play that much. But I see no problem in keeping them fresh for the next season.
Yeah. And it does sort of make sense to do that. And I had, when I wrote my initial drafts here, I wanted to see more of that lineup as well. Honestly, I hadn't even considered the idea. It's been so long since I thought about Kelly Oubre being injured. I forgot to even consider that thought, that why would he play? Of course, he's probably not. Even if the season were still going on somehow, just in some alternate universe, which apparently exists now. NASA decided that there's evidence of alternate universes. But if there was some sort of alternate universe where the season was still going on, I can't imagine he would play no matter what, unless he was like really 100% healthy,
right?
Or for some reason the Suns were in the playoffs or something.
And just to be clear, like, I don't mean playing Jalen like 48 minutes a game. Even I know that's ridiculous. I'm basically talking about treating it like it's a preseason game. Just try wacky shit and see what sticks. It's okay to fling stuff at a wall and see what sticks. And to that end, what I mean is, like, Cam Johnson was a regular rotation player. I would still play him. I'm not going to rest him entirely for the last 5 games. Play Cam Johnson, throw him out there for 20 to 25 minutes a game, and actually force him to run the offense and see what happens, or like run plays for him. It's okay to get weird because we're living in a weird time, and we shouldn't
run some pick and rolls.
Yeah, we shouldn't pretend that we're getting a return to normalcy.
None of it counts.
None of it counts.
It really, it does, but it doesn't. Like, it's like the 2K tournament all over again, except the NBA is using real players to do it. It's just very odd. Okay, I have one.
All right, go.
This one is not technically basketball related. Assuming these players, by the way, I said Orlando. I don't know if I noted this. It's at Disney World. That's where they're actually planning on doing this, because Disney World has the ability to. They have the hotels, they have the space, they have the ability.
It came
a soundstage basically.
It came to my attention on Twitter today that Disney World, I've never been, is twice the size of Manhattan.
Wow,
that is absurd. That's ludicrous. that exists.
I've never been either, and
you've been to Disneyland.
Going anytime. I go to Disneyland all the time, but Disney World, that's just too far away. It's in Florida. First of all, Florida sucks. Sorry to the people that listen to this podcast who live in Florida, but it's the worst. So I already feel bad for the players having to go to Orlando for this. But assuming it does happen, it's essentially going to be on a soundstage. Basically, they're going to build a TV set with a court on it. There's going to be no fans. There will be announcers, of course. Announcers I don't know if they're going to be there in person or if they're going to broadcast remotely.
You can do that remotely, for sure.
And they probably should. These guys, how Marv Albert's 115 years old.
yeah. And if anything happened to Kevin Harlan, I'd never forgive Adam Silver. So
exactly. I think that they should have an option for no announcers, kind of 2K style, where you can adjust it and just listen to the players. I want to hear the players talking trash to each other. I want to hear them communicating on the court, calling out plays, calling out defensive schemes, calling out offense, things like that. I want to be able to hear the players. Now, I wonder, I wonder really if the NBA would actually be willing to do this. Now, I think that if I thought about this a few months ago, I would think there's no way. There's absolutely no way the NBA would be willing to do something like this, because I'm sure they curse all the time. I'm sure there are things that are said on the court that they wouldn't want people hearing. But part of me wonders if we've gotten to a point where this is all so weird anyway. We just watched a documentary on ESPN that was fully unedited. Like, we got all the F words we wanted out of Michael Jordan and Dennis Rodman, who can barely speak without cursing. I do wonder if the world has changed enough that maybe they would actually be willing to give us an option where we could hear the players. Or how awkward would it be if they had to, because it's going to be easy to hear the players with just the mics on the cameras alone because there's no fans.
Yep.
How awkward would it be if they turned the volume completely down on those and then all you heard was announcers, like a podcast talking in your ear where basketball goes on back and forth? That sounds awful. So let's hear.
If you've ever watched streamed online or watched public access style, like a high school basketball broadcast or like a D2 or D3 level basketball broadcast, not podcast, sorry. That's what I said. If you've ever watched high school basketball or D3 basketball, that's exactly what it's like. It's this awkward experience of kind of being talked at by the announcers like you're listening to a podcast and maybe hearing a dribble every once in a while, but not really much crowd noise. I guess it depends on the broadcast you're listening to. I'm all for it, and this actually bleeds into my next one, which is I was afraid that they are going to neutralize exactly what you're talking about by pumping in crowd noise. They're just going to fake it, which is exactly what I don't want them to do. Because, first of all, I think that's kind of the most patronizing thing you could do to us as viewers, trying to remind us or trying to convince us. Well, I'm serious, because think about it. It's trying to convince us as viewers that this is normal. As I just said, this is not normal.
Right.
We should not try to pretend that this is normal. As far as I'm concerned, let the players curse as much as they want. I want to hear them call out sets. I want to hear them communicate with each other. We can figure out, if DeAndre Ayton is really worth his shit as a communicator on defense, if he's learning anything from Aaron Baines. For instance, that's something that I would look out for if either of them were actually going to play in these games. But don't pretend that we're stupid by drowning it all out with crowd noise. If anything, let the silence that you hear and the lack of fans, even if it is a little bit awkward, stand as this subtle reminder that this era that we're approaching, this stretch of games, if the season does in fact return, is going to be like the wildest shit that ever went down in NBA history.
Yeah.
Embrace it. Embrace it. And if we watch it on archive video 15 or 20 years from now, then, we should instantly be able to be drawn into that moment by the fact that, those were the 5 games in NBA history where there were no fans and you couldn't hear any crowd noise.
Yeah.
I want to be able to pinpoint it.
Yeah. And you know what? If you tell the players, people are going to be able to hear what you're saying, then it's on them. Like, if they say something they didn't want people to hear, well, that's what they did. They had the opportunity to not.
Some of them might be louder. Some of them would.
I guarantee it.
I guarantee in the playoffs, like Patrick Beverley is going to relish the opportunity to say whatever he wants, knowing that it's going to be heard by millions of fans.
Which sounds amazing. Like, that's what I want out of this. Because, what's the point of doing things this drastically differently and not embracing the differentness of it? You have to actually embrace how different it is and find new ways to make it entertaining. And here's the thing. You can put it on 2 different channels. Look, put the one like you did with ESPN did with the broadcast of The Last Dance. Give us the regular version in that version, feel free to pump in fake crowd noise or whatever with the announcers, and then give us the other version, and you can say, "Hey, just so you know, this one's unedited, players talking only. You get to feel like you're in the arena, and that's it." And then the viewers can make a choice. We can choose to watch one. We can choose to watch the other. It's the only thing on. It's not like there's any other sports happening right now. It's the only thing on, and so we can choose to watch one or the other. And that's my pitch. That's what I want to see happening. And I agree with you. It will be weird. I will say this: to see basketball without crowd noise will be bizarre. I was watching highlights recently. I was actually talking to Sam about this before the podcast, and a huge thing is the noise that the crowd makes when the ball goes in the basket. That's a big part of these highlights. The announcers can sit out and just allow the moment to sort of hit you with the crowd noise. The players react. I mean, some of the best GIFs that you've seen of players are them reacting to the crowd and the noise that's coming at them. And without all that, it's going to be odd. But like we said, if it's going to be odd, embrace it. Make it as odd as possible. All right, I got another one here. This one's real. And by that, I mean it's actually related to basketball, and it has some statistical relevance to the actual season. I wanted to make this point at the end of the season. We didn't really have an opportunity to talk about it because everything went to shit so fast. Remember when the Suns were 7-4? Remember that?
I do remember that.
That glorious stretch of basketball at the beginning of the season where we pretended the Suns were going to make the playoffs. Back when we talked about 0.5 offense, I feel like once they started playing badly, we just sort of abandoned the idea.
We forgot about, yep.
No, I will say this. It wasn't just us. The players, the team, the coaches, the GMs, everyone was talking about 0.5.
Coaches
started playing.
They're still talking about it. They're still talking about it.
Yeah, they are, but it was more prominent at the beginning of the season when it was sort of being introduced.
Well, there was this moment where it captured the national attention. Like there was this interest behind it, this intrigue. Oh, 0.5. What is 0.5? It's this beautiful brand of basketball. It's San Antonio influenced. It's everyone making these quick decisions. Mike Prada wrote about it, and a bunch of people wrote about it at the time. I think it may have. I don't remember who the fuck wrote about it anymore, but a bunch of people did. I'm not lying when I say really it captured a nationwide audience. And then you're right. The Suns started losing games, and suddenly we stopped talking about it.
There's a few things I liked about that stretch, and I'm a bit of a broken record with all of this because I believe that the best teams shoot the most threes, and that's the point I want to get to. During that 7-4 stretch, the Suns were 9th in the NBA in three-pointers attempted. 9th in the NBA, so they were top 10 in three-pointers attempted. You can guess who the top two teams are, I bet, Sam. Do you want to give it a try?
In three-pointers attempted?
Yeah.
Milwaukee and who's second?
Oh, no, actually Milwaukee's second. I think you're missing an obvious analytics favorite.
Who's for? Oh, Houston. I'm
Houston,
stupid.
Yeah.
I'm fucking stupid.
Here's a crazy stat. Houston takes 46 threes a game, or they were during that stretch. Kind of insane at the beginning of the season. And then, of course, Milwaukee was up there too. The Suns finished the season 21st in three-pointers attempted, and if you take out that 7-4 stretch, they were 25th in three-pointers attempted. Now, it can be argued, well, yeah, they weren't making as many shots. Honestly, I don't care. I want them to shoot more threes. They need to shoot more threes. It makes more sense for them to shoot more threes. If that means Devin Booker shooting more threes, fine, he can shoot more threes. If that means getting more threes out of Cam Johnson, because we can get more attempts to Cam Johnson, then yeah, do that. But if they come back, and if they play earnestly, which they probably won't, but if they do, take more threes. I don't think it makes any sense to regress in that stat at all. I think that you have to encourage this team to play a modern system. There was a stretch in the middle of that season where they started playing two bigs again. There was all these weird things that they tried in the middle of the season to get back to it, when in reality, they should have stuck to it. They should have stuck to the principles that they were playing with at the beginning of the season. That was within 0.5 seconds, you pass, you shoot, you drive, and you shoot a lot of threes, and they should have continued to do that throughout the entire time of the season, regardless of ebbs and flows of shooting percentages. That's not the type of thing that should change the way you play. That's just a normal thing. That's how averages work. Eventually you will regress. You will get better or you will get worse. That's what happens. So I just want them to continue that. Now that's this season or that's next season, but more threes.
I am very, very, very glad you brought that up. I agree with you. First of all, I think the coaching staff agrees with you too. And it's interesting. We didn't plan this at all, but the fact that you mentioned that, there's a really, really good interview that came out today with Darko Rajakovic, the assistant coach, mostly about offense. Very little of it is about defensive coordinator type stuff, but it's really about how the Suns brought an identity to their offense. It talks a lot about 0.5 offense, actually, and 0.5 principles in there. And I should tell you where to find it because I don't think I've done that yet. It's with Chris Oliver, who runs this YouTube channel called Basketball Immersion, and is really a podcast that is geared towards coaches. So it's kind of X's and O's based, and it's geared towards people coaching at the youth level or the high school level or the college level, any type of coach. But then also just talks a lot about general basketball mindset and identity. So go check that out. A great interview, an hour-long interview with assistant coach Rajakovic that came out yesterday now, if you're listening tomorrow. But what Darko said in this interview was that the Suns' identity at its core was 0.5 offense, but was also running what they called their auto offense. And from an X's and O's standpoint, what that meant was it was the point guard bringing the ball up the floor. It was two wings at the break of the three-point line. It was one big man used as a trailer, and the other big man used standing at the opposite elbow from Ricky Rubio or whichever point guard is bringing the ball up the floor. But the point was that he was making is the 4 and the 5, ideally in the Suns offense this year, the idea was they would be interchangeable. And one would always be the trailer, and one would always be at that elbow position, ready to set screens, ready to rescreen if an option is rejected, ready to be a rim runner. What it did, though, in my mind, it really established how important they saw it that at least one big man on the court at all times was a floor spacer. The only way you get optimal spacing is, yes, you have these two wings in the corners on the break, ready to get into that secondary, tertiary playmaking position, but you never have two big men kind of enter the paint at the same time. If one is inside, the other is always outside. And I think to kind of bridge what you were just talking about, Mike, I think where Suns fans got frustrated this year is bouts of time where either Aaron Baines wasn't hitting his threes, or Dario Saric was really struggling from downtown at some points, or Frank Kaminsky wasn't hitting threes. But structurally, the Suns' offense was really set up so that if DeAndre Ayton was the guy catching lobs, there was always going to be a guy paired with him that was meant to be put into that trailer position and just increase the spacing of the offense and shoot a lot of threes. And I definitely agree. I do think they got away from it a little bit towards the middle of the season. But I was really happy when I heard that interview today because it kind of reaffirmed that principle in my mind that, yes, this is something the coaching staff really does want to stick to. They do care kind of about analytics because that's really what this comes down to. And they do care about having a modern offense. And as we talk about how the Suns should structure their offense in the future, I think it has really important repercussions because it basically says if DeAndre Ayton's never going to learn to shoot, the power forward next to him absolutely has to shoot, or else they're just not going to do it. That's what the insinuation is there in having that style of offense.
And in a perfect world, they all shoot threes, including DeAndre Ayton. That's all five guys, and that allows maybe the big man, in quotes, or the person that's in the paint to be someone like Devin Booker, who is the best at penetrating. And it just gives you a lot more space, a lot more freedom to do a lot of things. But I also want to say, I truly believe in the philosophy of not restricting guys to shoot allows them to shoot a higher percentage. And I know it's kind of complicated, but there's two coaches specifically that talk about this. One is Mike D'Antoni. Players who have played for Mike D'Antoni will always shoot better when they play for him because he only chastises them when they don't shoot. He never gives them a hard time when they're shooting. The system demands that they shoot. And I think when there's no doubt in your mind that you're doing the right thing by launching a three because your coach is not going to chastise you for it, it matters. I think that allows players to shoot a little bit better. And maybe I'm being a little bit of a hippie here, but I truly believe that the other coach that says something like this is Steve Kerr. Steve Kerr says the ball has energy. The ball has a flow to it. And when it moves the right amount and gets the guys that are open to shoot, they're more likely to make it. So I believe in that just because I've played basketball before, obviously at a very low level of basketball, but I know when my teammates are confident in me shooting, it feels a little better to shoot. So I just think that I hope, and I'm glad you said that, by the way, and everyone should go listen to that interview. I hope that they continue to encourage people to shoot as much as possible. I truly cannot stress this enough. I do not give a shit about the shooting percentages at whatever point of the season. If there are players who are known to be shooters, they should be shooting. I don't care.
Yeah, well, I
if
think
they're in a cold stretch.
I think where the Suns are at right now, realistically, talking about a team that's on the bubble and just trying to be 500, you can't care about that. You can't get caught up in that.
Exactly.
If you're in the difference between being a real championship contender and being a pretender that gets knocked out in the second round, we can have those discussions. But for now, you need shooters to shoot. You need guys to have confidence. And that's why, again, sorry to sound like a broken record, but really, if you're a Suns fan, you're interested in coaching, go check out this interview with assistant coach Rajakovic, because the other thing he said that really stood out to me that I think I'm going to remember for a while is he said players want to play inside of systems where they touch the ball.
Right.
And that's exactly what you were just getting at.
Ball has energy.
Ball has energy. That's why Ricky Rubio was brought to Phoenix. That's why we can't, as fans, forget the value of Ricky Rubio and the massive improvement that he made to this team's offense and culture and identity this season, because he allowed everyone to touch the ball. He got other players the confidence necessary to shoot the ball, not always at quite the percentages that we liked.
Right.
But the Suns still led the league in assists, and if they continue to stock up on a little bit more talent, they're going to continue to trend in the right direction under this system.
It's not a coincidence that Devin Booker shot better, Kelly Oubre shot better, Mikal Bridges shot better. These guys shot better. And also, just to actually hammer that point home about Ricky Rubio, look at the way his former teammates talk about him. That matters. I think that type of thing matters, and it might matter when the Suns are looking for a free agent this summer, because they all love playing with Ricky Rubio. He has a great reputation, and that's because of what you said. Players like touching the ball. It doesn't matter if you're a high usage player or not. Being able to make decisions is kind of what makes basketball fun. If you have no choice in any decision that's made on the court, it's probably pretty boring.
Well, it's like how all of these former players always gush about how much they love playing with Steve Nash.
Yeah.
Whether it's Joe Johnson or Quentin Richardson, Sean Marion, Amari Stoudemire, they've always done it. And then half of them, go back and shit on Nash subtly and talk about how maybe he was overrated and was never one of the best players in the league. That's besides the point, though. They love to play with him because he got them the ball. It's really that simple.
Exactly. All right, what do you got? Next one.
My last one is I kind of touched on this before with the whole Josh Jackson thing. I guess to kind of bring that back around. I want the Suns, I guess, to not overplay guys like Devin Booker. But DeAndre Ayton and Mikal Bridges, it kind of matters how much we see of them in a way, because we only have 1 year left on each of their deals before they're going to be eligible for rookie contract extensions. For DeAndre in particular, that's really interesting, because imagine a situation where the Suns have 5 games left this season, which don't mean anything. And then this, the pandemic, the COVID-19 situation right now isn't fully taken care of yet by the start of next season, and we play another weird kind of asterisk-style season, and maybe we get part of a normal season, but part of a not normal season. And then before you know it, it's the end of DeAndre Ayton's 3rd year, and we have to have the conversation on this podcast and in various media outlets, is DeAndre Ayton worth a max contract? That's a very interesting situation. So, I think there is reason. Anyone who is a free agent or eligible for an extension soon should play some sort of role. So on another level, Javon Carter's a free agent this year. I think the fair thing to do for him, especially if the Suns aren't going to re-sign him, is at least let him try out for other teams. Play a guy like that. Dario Saric, at least let him try out for other teams. So I guess I'm just saying my third point is that there's some nuance to this. I don't want Devin Booker to get injured. I don't want Kelly Oubre to re-injure himself. But there are guys here where the stakes actually do seem to matter, even if we don't quite grasp that from the fan perspective.
All right, we're like 47-ish minutes into this podcast, and so I'm about to drop some sort of question here that'll make some Suns fans feel a certain way. How do you think Suns fans would react if there were rumors of DeAndre Ayton on the trade block this summer or this offseason, whenever that's going to be?
I think they would be angry. But why? Well, I've never to this point even considered that they would shop him. So what are they shopping him for?
Just to gauge his value, I think that I think you're right. First of all, with the idea of sort of understanding that max contract, and I think James Jones has won. I'm not sure how many championships has James Jones won at this point. 3?
I think so.
3, 4, maybe 4.
Not 4. Not 4.
Yeah. However many championships James Jones has won. 3 championships. How many of those 3 championships came with a dominant big man on them?
Define dominant big man. Kevin Love and Chris Bosh?
Kevin Love and Chris Bosh are great examples. Those guys are sort of role players on those teams now.
Okay, fine.
High quality role players. They are.
Hall of Fame role players there.
Hall of Fame worthy role players. Yes. Oh, well, here's the thing. The roles that they played on the championship teams are not the reason they're going to be in the Hall of Fame. Now, it helps to have that championship on their resume, of course, to be in the Hall of Fame. But if those years that they played with LeBron were also what they averaged before they got to LeBron, they'd be looked at a little differently. I think they had the opportunity to lead certain teams, and that boosted their overall career numbers, which helps. Not saying that he would do this, but say James Jones looks at it and says, "I'm not sure I want to use my cap space on a max contract for DeAndre Ayton or just a center in general," and he just shops him to see what would be available out there. I don't know that would happen. I don't know that Robert Sarver would allow it to happen, but I do wonder if there's a certain kind of GM that would do that just to see what was available, and if James Jones is that type of guy. Maybe it would be insane, especially after the season that he's had. Maybe it wouldn't. Maybe you can get something that you don't expect for example, maybe you're going to like this, maybe you're not. Say they call up Portland, as we talked about in our last episode, and they say, "Hey, what's it going to take for Damian Lillard?" What if Portland says, "Well, DeAndre Ayton, your pick, and I don't know, something else, Kelly Oubre or something."
They want Ayton and Bridges. Portland's going to want the second Damian Lillard hits the market, if he ever does. 28 teams are calling. 29 teams are calling.
Yeah.
So they want Ayton, Bridges, and picks.
Right.
That might still be worth it, which is insane to think about.
It's an interesting prospect. And, I mean, it can be argued the defense could potentially be so bad that it'd be difficult to recover from. Yeah,
it looks pretty.
Like that,
I know you can't live in the past, and this is a really shitty way to think about it as you build a team for the future if you're a GM, but it does look pretty silly to pass on Luka for Ayton and then trade him for a guard. Looks pretty silly.
Yeah, it would, and I don't really care about that. But yeah, yeah, it's just a thought. If you make calls like that, if you're actually,
I'm in no rush to trade him. Don't come. I just want. I want it on the record now. Don't come for me. Don't send me hate mail. I'm not trying to trade DeAndre Ayton. Cool, we're cool.
Yes, I agree with that. But it's just a thought. I wonder how Suns fans would react if that were to happen. All right.
You have one more?
That was a good one. I do have one more. I have a question for you. What do you think is the most three-pointers attempted by Cameron Johnson this season was? Do you have any idea?
In a game?
In a game.
6? 7?
No. Actually, it's kind of interesting that you said that. He actually took 13.
What? Oh.
In one game. It was actually versus the Toronto Raptors.
I was way off. Whoa.
The Suns lost by 9. He had 21 points, 3 blocks.
I remember that game. Wow, yeah. I said 6 and he averaged 5 a game. That was pretty stupid.
5. Yeah, he had one game with 9 and the rest of them were 8, 7, 6, and then below. A few games where he took 1. I'm going to say this. If the Suns play this last stretch of the season, we got to get at least 10 3-pointers attempted by Cam Johnson per game.
No doubt.
Let's see how far we can stretch this.
No
10
doubt.
should be the minimum. They should go out there and say, Cameron, you are taking 10 3-pointers a game, period. And then see how many he can take beyond that.
It's gonna be absurd rules. Because think about this, man. Every lottery fan base is having the same conversation. Like, let's say the Knicks and the Suns meet up for some useless game here. You're gonna have Cam Johnson enter the game on one side, shooting 15 threes, and on the other side, you're gonna have Mitch Robinson playing point guard, showing off the bum ass handles he just did in that Twitter video.
That was a joke. That was the fact that Knicks fans actually think that that's good is so bizarre. First of all,
it was funny because he was against a guy who was clearly like 5'11",
5'11" and no strength on his body, versus Mitchell Robinson, who's clearly very strong, and Mitchell still with all those handles could not get by him. He actually ended up shooting a step back 21-foot mid-range shot, and people were like, yes, he did.
He's a unicorn.
Mitchell Robinson,
This is what we've been waiting for.
Best center in the NBA. He finally figured it out. That was a joke. 1, he can't get by that man. 2, those handles will get stripped by an average defender in the NBA. And if he's using handles to take a step back mid-range shot, that's the worst possible shot in the league. So feel free to do that as much as he wants.
I knew you thought it was funny, but I didn't actually know you'd get this riled up. So I'm glad I brought it up.
I just think I think it's funny when people go, "Wow, look at Mitchell Robinson. He's so good." It's like first of all, he is really good. He's really good because he understands his role in the NBA. If he starts to get a little bit of this Dwight Howard thing where you want to do more than you're capable of, that's when you start becoming not worth what you're actually bringing to the table here. And I think to me, it's clear that he's trying to send a message here that he's capable of doing that, because this is not the first time that we've seen one of those handles videos. What he just put out against a no-name defender, every single NBA player can do that. I hate to break it to people who were surprised by that. Every single one. That includes DeAndre Ayton, who's dribbled 13 times in the NBA total. He can do that as well against a nobody. It's just not impressive to me.
Who's the second best? I'm sorry for the aside now, but I always love a little bit of Knicks hate. Who's the second best prospect in the Knicks rebuild? Don't say RJ
outside
Barrett.
of Mitchell?
Don't say RJ.
It has to be RJ. Who else could it be?
Kevin Knox?
It's not Frank. No, it's not Kevin Knox.
That team is so fucked. And you don't even understand, dude. Like I moved 300 miles away from New York City. I'm still in New York State. Okay, maybe 200 miles, not 3. And there are still diehard Knicks fans up here who will swear by Kevin Knox and RJ Barrett to the grave. And I feel like I'm just looking at a version of myself from 3 years ago, screaming into, but like I can't reach them. You know, I want to reach out and grab them and tell them that RJ Barrett is the next Josh Jackson and Kevin Knox is the next.
Okay, wait. I want to say this. RJ Barrett was bad. Yes. I think he is not the next Josh Jackson. I think there were flashes towards the end of the season where I'm like, okay, I don't have faith he's going to be an all-star at any point in his career. I'll say that. But I think he could be okay. Like, I don't think he's going to be a terrible player. And I guess maybe some people still feel that way about Josh Jackson.
I mean, that's exactly what I was saying about Josh earlier in the episode. He might not be a terrible player. We're also coming on a reckoning point where the Suns gave up on guys like Josh Jackson and Marquise Chris after a couple of years. Those guys are still only like 22, 23, and both of them were kind of okay this year.
Well,
we're treading dangerously close to the point where Marquise Chris is like a good starting center for the Warriors next year,
yes.
And people clap back on us for it.
Did you see when I posted on Twitter about what we should talk about for this episode? Did you see the person that posted the link with quotes from front office people with the Warriors calling Marquise Chris their franchise center, and they feel comfortable starting the season with him starting at center? Did you see that?
I did see that, and that's basically what I'm talking about. Like he had some good defensive plays for them this year, and then suddenly people want to still buy into his potential, which, to be fair to Keese, the Warriors are a high-quality organization that the Suns were not. They were just plain not.
And he's a perfect fit there, as far as what he's
potentially
capable of.
I kind of hate Marquise Chris. I'm not going to lie. I really kind of hate the guy. But I will admit that he was an athletic player who maybe had some sort of semblance of potential to hit an outside shot. He didn't do it at a high rate for the Suns, but he was willing to try. And his only issues were really maturity. So if he fixes maturity on a better organization than the Suns were a couple of years ago and becomes a quality player, credit to him. I still kind of hate the guy, but I would have to give credit where it's due at that point.
I don't hate him. I always kind of liked him. Did I think he was going to be a good player, a great player? No, not after watching him. I had high hopes for him when I first saw him, but I do think he's in a really good role for him right now. I think that he will be good.
Marquise Chris, I think, is the reason that you keep asking me if every 6'8" big men can play center, right? Because he's the blueprint for that.
Not can, should. I'm not even saying they're all going to be good at it. I'm just saying I'm not sure if they have a role in the NBA outside of that.
Unless they do that. Yeah. No,
exactly.
It's
just where we're at.
We got a little off track. Where did we even start here?
Let's just end this thing. We talked about Marquise Chris for 5 minutes.
God,
56
fuck.
minutes into a podcast.
Jesus Christ.
All right. If the NBA comes back, you know what we want to see. Hopefully there is some sort of news that Sam and I can talk about next week. Thank you everyone for listening. If you have any ideas of what we should talk about going forward, feel free to send them our way. Also, we may or may not be working on some other stuff for you soon, so keep an eye out for that. Anything else, Sam?
That's all for me. You'll hear from us eventually.
Sugar Ray Leonard, Roberto Duran, Marvelous Marvin Hagler, and Thomas Hearns. Legends, whose four-way rivalry defined one of the greatest eras in boxing history. Relive their decade of dominance in the new Showtime sports documentary, The Kings, a 4-part series premiering Sunday, June 6th, only on Showtime.